The polished oak of the conference table felt cool and indifferent beneath my fingertips, a silent witness to 2 decades of my life. For 20 years, I had occupied a chair in this room, first as a junior programmer, then as a senior developer, and for the last decade, as the head of legacy systems for Innovate Inc. The name itself, once a bold declaration, now felt like a cruel irony. Innovation had long since fled the building, replaced by a creeping rot of corporate jargon and short-sighted decisions. My boss, a man-child named Kevin, who wore sneakers that cost more than my first car and used words like synergy and disruption as if they were get-out-of-jail-free cards for his own incompetence, cleared his throat. He was flanked by a woman from HR whose smile was as synthetic as the fabric of her blazer. This was it. The moment I had been anticipating for the last 18 months. "Frank," Kevin began, his voice laced with the faux sincerity of a used car salesman. "As you know, the company is moving in a new, more agile direction. We're streamlining our operations, optimizing our assets, and focusing on our core competencies." He was reading from a script. I could see the faint outline of the words on the tablet in front of him. I had written similar scripts myself, back when I was the one tasked with the unpleasant duty of downsizing. "And so," he continued, his eyes darting around the room, landing everywhere but on me, "we've come to the difficult decision that your position is being eliminated." There it was, the final sterile sentence that was meant to erase 20 years of my loyalty, my dedication, my life's work. 20 years of late nights, of missed family dinners, of pouring my heart and soul into the digital architecture that was the very foundation of this company. I was no longer Frank, the man who had single-handedly saved the company from a catastrophic data breach in 2008, the man who had designed the billing system that was still the company's primary source of revenue. I was a redundancy. The HR woman slid a folder across the table towards me. "This is your severance package, Frank," she said, her voice a monotone drone. "It's quite generous, I think you'll find." I didn't open it. I knew what was inside. The statutory minimum, a token gesture of goodwill, and a non-disclosure agreement that was as thick as a phone book. I looked at Kevin, at his youthful, unlined face, at the smug certainty in his eyes. He thought he was cutting away dead wood. He had no idea he was sawing off the branch he was sitting on. "I see," I said, my voice calm, even. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times. "Well, thank you for the opportunity." I stood up, pushed my chair in, and turned to leave. I didn't plead. I didn't argue. I didn't vent my righteous fury. I simply walked out of the room, leaving them in a stunned, anticlimactic silence. They had expected a scene, a breakdown, a desperate plea for my job. They had no idea what would happen next. My preparations had begun the day Kevin was hired. He was the nephew of a board member, a hotshot from a rival company who promised to shake things up. He saw me as a relic, a dinosaur who didn't understand the new paradigm. He was right in a way. I didn't understand a paradigm that valued buzzwords over substance, that saw loyalty as a liability. For 18 months, I had watched as Kevin systematically dismantled the company I had helped to build. He fired experienced engineers and replaced them with fresh-faced graduates who knew the latest coding languages but had no understanding of the complex, interconnected systems they were supposed to be working on. He diverted resources from essential maintenance to flashy, ill-conceived projects that were destined to fail. He was a child playing with a loaded gun, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he pointed it at me. So, I prepared. I documented everything. Every line of code I had ever written, every system I had ever designed, every patch I had ever implemented. I created a personal archive, a digital fortress that contained the sum total of my knowledge, my experience, my value. And then, I created a dead man's switch. It was a simple, elegant piece of code buried deep within the company's mainframe. It was designed to do one thing and one thing only. Upon my termination, it would activate not with a destructive flourish, but with a quiet, insidious subtlety. It would begin to degrade the system, not in a way that would be immediately obvious, but in a slow, creeping decay that would mimic the natural entropy of a neglected system. It was a digital ghost, a phantom in the machine, and it was my parting gift to the company that had betrayed me. The first few weeks after my firing were a strange, disorienting limbo. I went through the motions of job hunting, of updating my resume, of networking with old colleagues, but my heart wasn't in it. I was waiting. And then it began. A frantic call from a former colleague, a junior programmer named Sarah, who I had mentored. "Frank, thank God I found you," she said, her voice a panicked whisper. "The billing system is going haywire. It's sending out duplicate invoices, it's miscalculating taxes, it's a complete nightmare." I feigned surprise. "That's strange," I said, my voice a mask of innocent concern. "It was running perfectly when I left." "That's just it," she said, her voice rising in desperation. "No one knows how to fix it. Your documentation is gone, your access codes have been revoked. It's like you never existed." I had, of course, wiped my official documentation clean before I left. A final, petty act of defiance. The real documentation, the key to the kingdom, was safe in my personal archive. The calls kept coming. The inventory management system was crashing. The customer database was corrupting. The entire digital infrastructure of the company was crumbling, piece by piece. Innovate Inc. was in a state of freefall, and no one knew why. Kevin, in his infinite wisdom, hired a team of expensive consultants to fix the problem. They descended on the company like a flock of vultures, armed with their laptops and their buzzwords. They spent a month analyzing the data, auditing the system, and generating a comprehensive report. Their conclusion? The system was outdated and needed to be completely overhauled. Their estimated cost? $10 million. The board was in an uproar. The company's stock was plummeting, their clients were leaving in droves, and their hotshot CEO had just presented them with a $10 million bill for his own incompetence. And then, I made my move. I contacted the one person in the company I knew I could trust, Arthur Pendleton, the company's founder, a brilliant, eccentric old man who had been pushed into a ceremonial chairman emeritus role by the new board. He was a man who understood the value of loyalty, of experience, of a job well done. We met in a dusty, forgotten corner of the company's library, surrounded by the ghosts of a bygone era. I laid it all out for him. The systematic dismantling of the company, Kevin's incompetence, my own meticulously planned response. He listened, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of amusement and admiration. When I was finished, he let out a long, slow whistle. "You magnificent bastard," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "You've built a digital time bomb, and they're sitting right on top of it." "I can fix it," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I can restore the system, I can undo the damage, but I have my price." And so, the stage was set for the final act. An emergency board meeting was called. I walked into the room, not as a supplicant, but as a savior. The same room where I had been so callously dismissed just a few weeks before. The air was thick with tension, with the stench of fear and desperation. Kevin was there, his face pale, his youthful confidence shattered. He looked at me with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. I laid out my terms, a 5-year, ironclad contract as the company's chief technology officer, a salary that was double what I had been making before, a seat on the board, and the pièce de résistance, Kevin's immediate termination. The board was in a bind. They were hemorrhaging money, their reputation was in tatters, and they were staring down the barrel of a $10 million overhaul. I was offering them a lifeline, a way out of the mess they had created. They agreed. Of course, they agreed. The next few months were a blur of activity. I worked tirelessly, restoring the system, undoing the damage, breathing life back into the digital heart of the company. I brought back the experienced engineers that Kevin had fired, the loyal, dedicated professionals who knew the system inside and out. We were a team of corporate ghosts, brought back from the dead to haunt the company we had built. We didn't just restore the system, we improved it. We modernized it. We streamlined it. We made it more efficient, more robust, more secure than it had ever been before. We were a well-oiled machine, a testament to the power of experience, of dedication, of a job well done. And me? I was no longer the invisible man, the quiet, unassuming dinosaur in the corner. I was the man who had brought Innovate Inc. back from the brink. I was the man who had stared into the abyss of corporate betrayal and had not blinked. Sometimes, in the quiet of my new, spacious office, I would think of Kevin. I pictured him out there, in the cold, unforgiving world of corporate headhunting, his golden resume now tarnished by the spectacular failure of his tenure at Innovate Inc. He had tried to erase me, to render me obsolete. But in the end, he had only succeeded in erasing himself. My story became a legend at Innovate Inc., a cautionary tale whispered in the hallways, a reminder that the quiet ones, the ones who do the work, the ones who are so often overlooked, are the ones who hold the real power. They had fired me after 20 years, but they had no idea what would happen next. They had no idea that they were not ending a chapter, but starting a new one. A chapter that I, Frank the Redundancy, the dinosaur, the loser, would be the one to write. And it was a story, I was proud to say, that was far from over.